Back on Big Ten today, Wisconsin trying to bounce back from a 4-8 season a year ago after a brutal schedule that they had to go through. The slate is more cooperative this year. They have a lot back. They got a really good QB in the portal in Colton Joseph. The hope for health at that position this year, that has been elusive. Fabulous opener, first week of September at Lambeau against the Fighting Irish. And head coach Luke Fickell is our big interview after wrapping up spring practice this week. Coach, what were you most pleased with as you come out of the spring?
I think a competitive spirit. We brought a lot of new guys in, and guys, they're going to be expected to be in positions that are going to contribute a lot, i.e. starters kind of things. And so when you go to spring ball, you know, there are some guys that maybe walked in the door here expecting to be a starter, you know, on some of the transfer world, but like to see, hey, will they compete? Will they go out there and recognize, like, there's guys that have already been in this system and other guys that have come in that want that same exact spot. So trying to find a way, not being worried about, you know, injuries and things that have happened to us, but still be able to go out there in the spring and find the competitive spirit and make sure guys can play the game. And I think we did a really good job of that each and every Saturday where we went live ball.
All right, you brought up the injuries. I didn't, but I do want to focus on the quarterback position, which has been a bit of a revolving door for you just due to the injury issue more than anything these last few years. Last year, you had 4 different quarterbacks throw at least 10 passes, really crazy numbers. But you went out and got a really good quarterback in the portal in Colton Joseph from Old Dominion. We will hope that he stays healthy this year. Give people a sense of what he brings, because he appears to be an incredibly dynamic player.
Well, I'll first say that, like, I think that as much of anything, some of the best, you know, growth and difference in our program right now is the quarterback room. And so obviously we're going to talk about Colton, but the ability to have some more guys in there that just in case, you know, this is a brutal game. And so there's a competitiveness in that room with a few other guys that have been brought in that looks different than what it has been. So that, I think, for all of us is something that's made it better. But Colton is a guy that, yeah, he's played a lot of ball. He's got a lot of experience. Played, you know, obviously in a league that's maybe a little bit different, but also knows what this league's about. And I love guys that are willing to challenge themselves to take the next step. But he's come in here, he's embraced an offense that's completely different to him. And I think more than anything, that Colton's a guy that if you watch the beginning of spring ball to the end of spring ball, you know, might be one of those guys that, even though he's had experience, had the greatest growth through this entire spring, and his best was at the very end.
Well, if you saw him against Indiana, the eventual national champs last year, we got a sense for his explosiveness, some long runs in that game. And I think overall, one of the things that you're looking to do is get more explosive. So Colton is a part of that equation, and that quarterback room in general that you were talking about, Luke, is a part of that equation. But year 2 under Jeff Grimes, how does this become a more explosive offense?
I think that what the offense did, even through the spring, is kind of recognize what we have at the quarterback position and then started to try to work themselves and tailor it a little bit more. Obviously, those guys are going to learn and grow, and Colton in particular, but also doing the things that, you know, he feels most comfortable with, so we can grow the offense and not have maybe everything in maybe like we did last year. So it was good for Colton to see some of those things. We maybe aren't under center quite as much throughout the spring, but I think what we did see is not just the ability for us to make some big plays with Colton, but also him to be able to get the ball down the field, extending some plays. That's where the competitive spirit really built. And, you know, there's a lot of other positions, but when you're competitive at the quarterback position, not just with your starter, but with the other guys, it creates a lot more of a competitive spring. And so it started there, but in the end all, in the final sort of spring game, there were more explosive plays, I think, than we saw all of the last 5 weeks of the season.
One of the things that was really exciting late in the year last year, you picked up some big wins, and we can talk about that, but the development of some of your young players on defense, Mason Posa, Cooper Catalano are the 2 guys that really jump to mind. But give us a sense in general of that defense and the development you've seen in some of those younger guys who burst on the scene kind of out of necessity last year.
They did. And sometimes, you know, you have to find those things, and you go through some situations that put guys into positions and you don't even know what you have until they're out there. And those are 2 guys in particular that did a phenomenal job. those two guys in particular gave us a lot more confidence in going into even doing what we needed to do in January and bringing guys into the program, because the second and third year guys, the Postas, the Catalanos, and then some of these, the Kevin Haywoods and the Colin Cubberleys and Emerson Mandels, this group of guys that have been here for 2 and 3 years that, have gone through the tough times that we've had in particular the last couple of years, and have taken some of them punches in the face and heard all the noise from around. They're in a different place, and they recognize that, yes, their play on the field is important, but their leadership within this locker room is even more important, and more important for us to be able to bring in pieces that we're going to count on, but to build upon even the things that have happened here the last 3 years. And it's harder for the people outside to see because they only see Saturdays and they only see wins and losses. And we understand that, but there's so much more that has grown and been built from within that, Cooper Catalano, Mason Posta, and those guys in the offensive line represent, that has put us in a better position and feel good about where we are coming out of spring football.
And I think we started to see the fruits of that labor. I know we started to see them at the end of last year. You think about the ranked wins. I mean, we in-bumped this segment with a on-the-field celebration from a big win. You beat Washington, you beat Illinois. I know the record wasn't what you want it to be, nowhere close to what you want it to be. But did those games, in what way do those games give you some momentum? And as you say, when you're going into the portal and kind of selling the program, how do those help you?
I think that there's a realization that you're not that as far away as maybe some people would envision. And so there's a part of that that gives you the confidence of what it is that you are doing. And you got to be able to see some of those things, whether it's the guys in the program or even the coaches within the program. And so we did play some good ball down the stretch. And I don't mean in the complimentary football. We were very limited offensively at what we could do, but we found a way to say, hey, how do you win football games? And that means everybody's kind of got to come together and do what you need to do to be able to win. And I think that built some confidence, but it also created some leadership. And I think that's where, look, it would be a completely different feeling if we didn't have a chance those last few weeks to play a lot better ball. And, it's hard to say this, but our coaches did a really good job, and those leaders, in particular, the ones we've talked about, did a really good job the second half of the season. And I know the results aren't what we wanted, but there were some things from within that I think are going to be what we build upon and what really looks different as we go into this season coming forward.
And injuries, again, were a huge part of the struggles last year. And as you say, kind of limited what you could do, particularly offensively down the stretch. The other limiting factor was the schedule. And we talked a lot about it when we were there in the preseason. I know, look, the schedule. You guys had 10 bowl teams last year. You have 5 bowl teams from last season on this year's schedule. I know no one looks at a schedule, certainly no football coach looks at a schedule and says, well, that's easy. But is it a little bit different where you look at it and say it's not quite as daunting as it appeared to be going into last year?
There's no doubt. We'd be lying if we didn't say that. Yeah. But I think we all know that, like, in order to build, you got to have positives. You got to win ball games. You got to build momentum. You got to have some of that energy. And it was one of those situations last year where, we were struggling, but we also, we're playing in a lot of situations where, man, even if we played good ball, it wasn't in our favor. And so that was a hard piece to overcome, especially with, where we were and what we had to try to do. But I think there's some different outlooks. I think it was big in January. The two things that for us to get into the portal and get some pieces that we needed to, that the last few games of the season where we did play a lot better and we won some games against some really good opponents. And then the ability for guys to look forward to say, hey, this is something that gives us an opportunity if we can get this thing rolling on the right page and in the right path. That looks a little bit different than it has. The league is still the league, and this is going to be a grind no matter what, because the league, each year that I've been in this, in particular the last 3, has gotten significantly more difficult. And I mean that just everybody is a better team, and I think they're better coached. But it does. There's some ideas and what you look at down the road that everybody in this program sees that gives us a better chance to make sure we're getting this thing going in the right direction.
Coach, before I let you go, there's been a lot of transition at Wisconsin here. Chris McIntosh, the athletic director, just announced that he's leaving, in fact, has left to take a job at the conference office. The chancellor of the university is moving on. How do you deal with an environment where there is some uncertainty in terms of the people that are above you and going through that transition?
First and foremost, the great thing about this place is it's been a traditional place. And so I know for me, the stability of understanding, like they've always done things in a traditional way. And that's what I loved about coming here. That's what I've loved about being here. So I got a lot of confidence in that. Look, they're not going to go all the way far left and say, hey, we need to change a lot of things. Like they know who they are. They know what they want. It gives us an opportunity, just like when we have some coaching change, it gives us an opportunity to say, well, okay, how do we get better? And what do we need with this landscape? And so I think in both realms, it gives us a chance as a university, gives us a chance as the athletic department to find ways to say, okay, in this landscape, what's going to give us the best opportunity to get better? And so for us in the immediacy of the now, I'm glad it didn't happen in January when there was a lot of things that were going on in the program. But as it happened when we were in spring ball, it gave us a chance to stay focused on what we were doing and recognizing and allowing people to say, hey, do what you got to do. We got to put ourselves in a position where, we're still are the doorstep in a lot of ways to the university, being the football program and the history here, to continue to create some positive energy and momentum as they do go and find us a new AD and a new chancellor.
All right, Luke. Well, hey, congratulations on getting through spring ball. I will look forward to being up there this summer and seeing the Badgers in action. Always appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks, Fresh. Appreciate it.